Welcome to the August 17th, 2017 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And OldManStompy.
So, we have a combo of topics today, one of them being OldManStompy's. And I was very interested in hearing about this because I really want to get into watching this show. I really want to get into it, and the way that you and Pyro talk about it always just makes it sound great. So, can you elaborate, OldManStompy?
Okay, so today I'd like to do a little post-mortem on the first series of Kamen Rider. So a few months ago I was talking about how... so we had actually had a Reactive Consciousness episode where Lotus and Pyro talked about a couple of series of Kamen Rider they had been watching that inspired me to want to watch the show. But like Lotus, I tend to like to watch things in order, so I thought, hey, the first thing I'll do is just try to look up the original series from 1971 and see if that holds up today. And to see what how engaging it is. My plan was that if I didn't like the first few episodes, if they weren't interesting, I would just skip it, and move to the next one if it was available somehow, and just continue until I found something that really grabbed me. Because there are 26 Kamen Rider series now.
The funny thing is, I did the same thing with Ultraman. Like, Ultraman was on... The original Ultraman series was on Hulu. And I tried to watch it, and I really love the battle scenes, but everything else leading up to them is just straight garbage. I can't watch it.
That's kind of how I felt about Metalder, which is, like, what the leader of the VR Troopers, like, the series he's from, like, the not fight parts are just, they're so whatever.
Yeah, so there's really just 5 minutes of the show that I want to watch every single week. So.
But I mean that's pretty nostalgic to me anyway, because I used to watch a lot of Power Rangers, and those shows are structured the same way.
Yeah. Sure.
Pyro had told me that later it gets a little bit more engaging because they start really developing the toy lines around the shows, and they start debuting new monsters and new forms and new characters like every single week. So there's a little bit more variety, and I didn't have that coming in. So it almost feels like the first Kamen Rider show would be like the absolute starting point, and if you can't digest this, then it only goes up from there.
Yeah, and the non-monster plot lines are pretty cool in certain series too. Like I mentioned, I've watched Kuga, Ryuki, and O's, and those were all mostly fun to watch when not actively fighting. There are of course some parts where it's like, all right, whatever, but like as far as discovering like what it all means and seeing the series progress, it can be pretty exciting.
Yeah, so like that was actually what originally inspired me to even think about starting to watch the series, was that you and Mr. Ryu had been watching, like, Kamen Rider Ooze, and, or O's, three O's, whatever.
O, which is O's.
O's.
Yeah, everything's coming
so yeah, like I said, I used to watch Power Rangers when I was a kid, and sort of hearkening back to a fan question that we didn't answer this week, it was something that I had thought of as a property I'd grown out of. Like, I remember, like, the fighting and the acting being really stilted, and like, everything being really formulaic, and thinking kind of like Pokemon for a while, that it was something I grew out of, but apparently I was wrong. It's something you can grow back into, too. Like, So, I've discussed a little bit previously the protagonists of the first Kamen Rider series. So the first actor is a guy in the show by the name of Takeshi Hongo. It played by the same actor who plays the Sega Saturn mascot, Segata Sanshiro.
Oh man,
yeah,
nice.
in Japan, yeah. So I had been told in the past, although his time has passed, that at one point he was kind of like the Japanese Chuck Norris, which is why he was tapped to be Segata Sanshiro. And there is
he looked that way in those commercials.
There is apparently like some variety show where he came on as Segata Sanshiro and then transformed into Kamen Rider and like beat up the monster. So like, that seems like some rare footage that would be fun to try to track down.
I think even you had told me, if not you, then Mr. Ryu, then that in Project Cross Zone 2, he shows up, and Project Cross Zone is all about Namco, Cross Capcom, Cross Sega, and all the Sega characters just inherently know who he is. And so, like, the Namco and Capcom characters are like, who's this guy? They're like, dude, he's Sega Sanshiro. Like, it's just pretty amusing.
So we had talked about this because, like, he acts out like a Sakura Wars commercial in the game that only aired in Japan.
That's so esoteric.
And so, like, who would know? Like, that's the sort of thing that would mean a game would never come out in America. But here it is, like translated into English. And, like, I guess it's a good sign, you know, for the current era that, like, if you don't know what it is, you can easily look it up on YouTube. So maybe companies aren't as, like, gun-shy about bringing those kinds of games over. I guess we didn't have some of these discussions with Vyse. I think most of the Kamen Rider talks that I came on the show were as replacements for Vyse. So this will be a little bit new to you. So Takeshi, he's the protagonist for most of the first, like, 13-episode arc. And then close to the end, he, like, catastrophically injures his leg in a real-life motorcycle accident, I guess related to the show, and he winds up spending the next, like 3 or 4 months out of commission. He gets replaced by a new character, Ichimonji Hayato, who becomes the second Kamen Rider. And in the beginning, it feels like they try to make him come across as, like, a very different sort of character. Like, Hongo, he's got this, like, big shock of black hair and these big bushy eyebrows, and he's always wearing a suit. He's very well dressed. He's, like, very traditionally masculine. And Hayato, when he comes onto the scene, he's carrying a flower in his mouth. It's like, why is he doing that?
Is he tangoing?
It never really makes sense. He's a photographer. Like, he's the exact opposite of Takeshi Hongo. Hongo is a motorcycle star and a biologist. That's how he was chosen to become Kamen Rider. He was kidnapped by Shocker to be remodeled because he was like the Ubermensch. He had an IQ of 600 and he was a phenomenal athlete.
600?
Yeah, of course. Nobody in fiction knows how the IQ, like, scale actually works.
Yeah.
They just assume that a large number must be phenomenally intelligent. It also explains why he knows, like, every scientist in Japan.
Not to mention that even the whole concept of IQ is highly debated by academia in general, and, like, it may just be something that people just make up, and it has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, well, go figure. They made it up, and it has nothing to do with anything.
There is one thing I'm curious about regarding the real-life motorcycle accident kind of taken out of the picture. Is this, like, the original Doctor Who, where, like, behind-the-scenes events kind of caused what became a trope? Because, like, you know how, like, eventually the Doctor, you know, like, I forgot how they did it, but didn't they come up with the whole concept of regenerating because the first Doctor wasn't able to play the Doctor anymore?
The original William
Hartnell
became too physically ill to play the character, and he actually passed away pretty soon after the third Doctor's regime. So they instituted the practice of changing the actor.
Because the thing with Kamen Rider is almost every Kamen Rider series has, like, a second Kamen Rider. I mean, they don't usually replace the first. They kind of show up as, like, an assistant or, like, a sidekick or something. But, like, I wonder if that's a trope that was caused by this original Kamen Rider series.
To me, it seems more likely that it happened as a means to sell toys, because these two characters, they don't generally share the spotlight. So Hayato, he maintains his role as Kamen Rider basically until Hongo is well enough to resume filming.
Okay.
In the third, so it's pretty well divided into, like, 13 or so episode arcs, and it's somewhere around the fourth arc, close to episode 52, where he starts, like, showing up again intermittently to rescue the second Kamen Rider. And then after that, in episode 52, he resumes the role full-time, and then Rider number 2 is basically never seen again, except for, like, climactic battles against the major Shocker generals, which is kind of a shame, because I was getting attached to him after having him for 40 episodes. So, like, the first 13 or so episodes, they're really experimental. I know I've talked about this a little bit before, but they were really trying to find, like, a formula that worked for the show they were trying to produce. And it leads to some really interesting attempts to, like, do the special effects that were definitely beyond the reach of modern 1970s television.
Yeah.
Like the death animations, at one point, like, one of the enemies dissolves into a string of pearl necklaces, and they just get, like, dissolved off the side of the screen.
That's amazing.
But, like, and then, like, somewhere around the 30s or 40s, it feels like the special effects guys, like, got their hands on a whole bunch of explosives, and so, like, every episode, like, the explosion of the monster and the base, like, takes a little bit longer and gets a little bit bigger, and it's just, like, fun to watch. It's like, is it over yet? Nope. It's like three more explosions.
Well, I think I mentioned this before, but in Kamen Rider Kuga, that actually becomes sort of like a plot point where, like, they... Like, you don't even really notice it as you're watching unless you're binging it, and even then, I didn't notice. But, like, if you go back to episode 1, and then you jump ahead to episode, like, 20, damn, the explosions are different, and like they actually address the monster explosions are getting bigger, so it gets to a point where like the Kamen Rider actively has to like lead the monster out into some Dragon Ball Z like barren wasteland, so when he kills him, it won't take out like a neighborhood. It's amazing.
So an interesting side point is that, like, you know, we're used to certain commentary on shows like this being, something that come up more recently in, like, the postmodern era. Like, the idea that why don't they attack Kamen Rider during his transformation sequence, you know, or during the Power Rangers during the transformation sequence. And it turns out...
Why don't the Power Rangers shoot their guns at every bad guy, because it seems to kill them?
You know, they actually did immediately with Lord Zed's first monster, and it did nothing. And that was the big, like, oh shit moment. Like, this Lord Zed's serious.
So... In the second to last episode, they actually do analyze Kamen Rider and say, well, his transformation lasts exactly half a second.
Oh, come on.
It takes on the screen. However long it seems to take on the screen, that apparently is how long it takes in real life. And they build a machine to freeze him in that exact half a second.
Oh, wow.
Because he's a sitting duck. So, like,
that's clever.
You know, they're aware of the fact that this is a trope, you know, before it even really became a trope.
That's great.
That's awesome.
You know what that reminds me of, actually, is have you ever watched Gal Gaigar?
Nope, but you're welcome to tell me about it.
It's amazing. Basically, I mean, people I think in general might be more familiar with Sailor Moon. Gal Gaigar almost feels kind of like the Sailor Moon for boys, you know, like at the time, where there's some monster of the week that's related to some real-world problem people were having, like, damn, I'm so sick of being caught in traffic, I'm so angry, and then the bad guy comes and he's like, really? I'll turn you into a monster, and it's like a giant, like, bulldozer monster, you know, it's like stuff like that.
Or it'll turn you into, like, a traffic light, like a giant traffic light monster.
Yeah, it was like a giant bulldozer monster. I remember there was some Sailor Moon monster where it was, like, a tennis-themed monster because they were doing tennis that episode, you know, like that kind of thing. With Gal Gaigar, instead of magical girls, it's like giant robots. But like the very first episode, they're like, time to do our, you know, obligatory 90s, this isn't CG, and we don't have time to animate this shit, so let's just do like a good like minute and a half transformation sequence every single episode. So like episode 1, they're like, time to do our
reuse this animation and take up some time.
That is what it is, but that transformation sequence is actually really cool. But in
like in Ronin Warriors has that too.
But in Gal Gaigar, they're like, you know, let's do like first time big transformation sequence, and it's this long elaborate sequence, and immediately the evil giant robot just tries punching him while he's transforming, but it shows this crazy like power swirl around him as he's transforming, and it repels the monster, and the transforming continues. Nice. I'm like, that's kind of nice.
It's good that they at least paid lip service to it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't really make sense.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess by the end of the series, as I was trying to watch it, things started to blur together a little bit, and I have to sort of think about it a little bit to understand if it's because they were sort of falling into a formula, or if it was me, you know, watching 98 episodes of the same television show, starting to get a little bit tired of it.
Sure.
I know that the last, like, 20 episodes or so, every monster was, like, literally just two regular animals, like, together. So the last monster was the leech chameleon, and, like, one of the ones before that was, like, the crow ox. And, of course, like, the name was more or less just, like, either the name of the animal in Japanese or in English, like, stapled together. And it looked a lot of the time like they put a guy in an old costume and then just like stitched another old costume.
Nice. Yeah, I've never seen that. I've only seen just like either original monsters or just like the one creature. Like Mr. Ryu told me that, I don't know if the original Kamen Rider did it, but a trope in I think every Kamen Rider series, or almost all of them, is like the first two monsters are going to be like a spider and a bat, just like every time.
Yeah, it was Pyro who brought that up, and in the discussion that made me want to go out and watch Kamen Rider. So like, I saw the spider, I saw the bat, I was like, yes.
By the way, the bat in Kuga really is actually scary.
Okay,
it's one of those like for kids, it's scary kind of monsters.
Some of the monsters are terrifying, even though they're stupid. Like the one of the last monsters turns you into a cactus. You know, and people like it just turns you into a cactus that looks like yourself, and it looks so stupid. But also, if it actually happened to you, it would be horrifying.
Yeah, but I mean, the bat just looks creepy as hell in Kuga. It's just like, I do not want to fight that.
Let's see, what else? What other? So the next series is Kamen Rider V3, which is a little bit harder to get a hold of, unless you pay $135 for the DVD set.
Oh no!
I looked this up in between the CoreCon episode 2 days ago for our viewers, half an hour earlier for us. So I guess I won't be buying that anytime soon. I think my wife would be upset.
It's not one of those shows that's easily gettable online, or...
Well, there's no major streaming service where you can purchase it.
What streaming service has the original?
Not a legitimate streaming service that I watched it on. I'm sure it is possible to find it legitimately, but I don't believe there's a DVD sale for the original Kamen Rider in the US yet. So
there's like no choice.
So
I'm sure Discotek will attempt to do it eventually.
So I know that fan subs of all of the Kamen Rider series exist. The question is like how, I'm not a fan of pirating in general.
Neither am I.
I just have enough media to consume that I don't need to go off I have no like ethical. It doesn't make me feel happy to go off and steal something just because I want to watch it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I get it too. I very rarely ever pirate unless it's something that's unavoidable. Like it's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think some of it is available on Amazon. Certainly, some of it is available on DVD.
Speaking of which, look up Kamen Rider Amazon.
Yeah, you can always watch. Yes, Kamen Rider Amazon. You can always watch Saban's Masked Rider if you really want to hate yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. You don't.
I could play the Sega CD game.
You could play the Wii fighting game of I think Ryuki.
Mm-hmm. Then there are definitely some older video games.
Dragon
I noticed
Rider.
One of the fan sub sites has a translated screenshot of what looks like a NES or a Super Nintendo game, maybe a Genesis game. So I'll go look that up. I'll come back and let you guys know which series I want to watch next. I guess the thing that bothered me the most was like the supporting cast around Kamen Rider. Like it changed all the time. Like there were always these like supporting actresses who were part of like his fan club, and sometimes they would just leave, and you would never know why. And they were just new women to replace them.
Weird.
And like half the time they never did anything. They used to sometimes get kidnapped, or sometimes they would even go like all of them. The club, the guy who repairs his motorcycle, and like the kids who would always be part of the club. They would go off and they would actually like assist in the defeating of the monster because it would require like some strategy. But at the end of the series, it felt like that went away a little bit. Like the unique monsters, like the ones that could resist the rider kick, his finishing move.
Yeah.
Like that happened quite often in the first half of the series, and it became less frequent as the series went on. Also, I noticed that this was kind of odd. I don't know if maybe Lotus, you can tell me if this is a common thing. Close to the end, every time they had the climactic fight, the second of two fights against the monster, they would play the Kamen Rider theme song over the fight, and you kind of always knew how long it was going to take because they had to go through the entire song, and it never ended before the song was over.
I don't really remember that so much. I think they probably did that in O's, but like, I think it was more toward the end of the series. Like, not every single damn monster fight, like that's really tiresome. Although I will say, regarding supporting cast, at least in the series I've seen, the supporting cast has been consistent, although not necessarily helping defeat the monsters, except for Kuga, because in Kuga, the supporting cast was basically the police force, and they were amazing. Like, not in terms of fighting the monster, but in terms of support, or like identifying where it was, or who killed whom. That is like, damn, that is some of like the best police force I've seen in like a TV show. Like, they were on point every time. It's not like, the police don't know what they're doing. We need Batman to help us. Like, no, like these police force were freaking fantastic.
All right. So I guess the other comment I would have, not that I haven't had plenty of comments already, is that it seems like V3, the next Kamen Rider, was originally supposed to be like a new character they were introducing for the 100th episode of the show.
Oh.
Right? Because the first season ended after 98 episodes, and of course it wasn't a series format then.
Oh, that's why it's V3 and not V2, because it's the third rider?
Right. So you could argue that it might have been the second Doctor Point, quote unquote, where they decided to start doing series on a year-by-year basis.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they knew that the thing that the actors were getting a little tiresome and that the storylines were getting a little bit repetitive, and they decided to freshen things up a little bit. So I will try to watch it. I don't know how, but I will give it my best shot. And if I do, I'll be happy to report back on Corcon when I've got some of it under my belt, under my championship. So that's my Kamen Rider for the week.
Okay. Well, I guess for our goings on, Vyse and I hung out on Saturday. So like I haven't come to think of it, I don't think I've ever been to Vyse's new place like by myself, like without other friends with me. So
yeah, in fact, you got lost on the way, which to the surprise
well, no,
of absolutely no
I
one.
like no, I got to your area reasonably enough, but like
yeah.
finding parking and then finding your like actual apartment from there was disorienting to me. But yeah, like I'd always been driven there, so this time I was the one who drove. But yeah, no, we got there and we hung out and did some cool stuff. Like, so the first thing we mentioned briefly on CoreCon, I watched Vyse. He showed me some Enter the Gungeon, which is kind of amusing because everything in that game is like gun or bullet related. Like your hearts are like a half bullet and a whole bullet kind of crossed over to sort of form the shape of a heart, like stuff like that. Like enemies are man-sized bullets that fire guns. It's like, what?
My favorite is the name of the last level.
Oh, I don't
what's
even know
that?
what that is.
Bullet Hell.
Hey, that's really good.
What's also good? You'll get a kick out of this. I came across a boss that I had never come across before, and it looks like a beholder from from Dungeons
D&D?
and Dragons, but it's called a beholster.
Hey, the one I really liked that Vyse saw was he was fighting a Medusa-looking enemy, and it was called the Gore Gun. It's like, yes,
yeah, and the one that I wanted to show you, which I thought you would think was great, is a gigantic raven with a Vulcan cannon. Vulcan Raven.
That's fantastic.
And when you kill him, a bunch of ravens like cover him just like Vulcan Raven and like pick his body away.
That's pretty good.
So it's just kind of funny. It's that it's a gigantic Vulcan Raven. It's just really awesome.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah, so like I'm getting more and more into playing that game and unlocking more and more of like the extra features. Like as time goes on, you randomly get chances to unlock other features of the game by finding other NPCs in the Gungeon. Mm-hmm. So like and they appear the more times you play, you have better chances of finding them and helping them escape their cells that they're in and that kind of thing. So it's really, really cool. And basically everything's a reference in that game. Like one of the guns that I got was called the Judge, and it's like definitely a reference to Judge Dredd's gun because like
double whammy.
After you shoot a bunch of regular bullets, the last bullet is like a special bullet, and because he has like special like poison bullets and stuff like that. So
there was the Ghostbusters proton pack.
Yeah, there's a proton pack, and it acts just like a proton pack. Recently, I just got a Earthworm Jim's gun.
Oh,
I think it's called a gun out of heck because
nice.
Like what the heck, but It doesn't have any visible bullets, just like in the game.
It's just the muzzle flash.
Yeah, it just has a muzzle flash, and like it kind of like has little sparks where the bullets will finally end up.
Nice.
What their range is, but it's just kind of funny, and it doesn't reload either. That's
is it like a
the major
red pistol.
Yeah, it looks exactly like the.
That's great.
Earthworm Jim gun, and you don't reload it. That's like the major advantage, is that it can constantly unload 99 bullets, which is kind of cool. And one of the guns is just a lowercase r.
Yeah, that's
I find
really
hilarious.
Funny. I like that one. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's really dumb. And like the characters in the game are pop culture references. Like the Marine is a reference to Doom Guy.
Yeah.
The Convict is
I couldn't recognize who that was.
The Convict is related to another series. Hotline Miami. It's related to Hotline Miami. And there's also a character that's the Rogue. I think that's related to Firefly.
Oh, nice.
I've been having a lot of fun playing this. This is definitely a game that I would like to stream at some point, just because it's a game you play over and over again and try to get better. And there's some persistence. After some time, you unlock more weapons that are become more available to you in the Gungeon and things like that. There's also a way that you could skip levels later on in the game as well. So the more and more you play it, the more and more features you unlock, and the more and more it's easier to get down to bullet hell.
Yeah.
I'm having a really great time with it. It's also a lot of fun co-op. I want to get the opportunity to play it a little bit more co-op as well, because the co-op character can actually revive player one when he dies.
Nice. So it's kind of like did Nuclear Throne offer that?
I don't think so.
No. You know what it was? It was Mother Russia Bleeds that offered that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the co-op character can only do it once. He has a special item that allows you to bring back player one. But it's a consumable. It's called like a life cookie or something like that. It's kind of funny. But I'm having a great time with that game. I really like Nuclear Throne as well, but I think I like Enter the Gungeon the most out of this type of game, because there's so much you could do in the game. Like you could throw up like tables for.
I really like that.
For
like use tables as cover.
As cover, yeah. So like, and I'm getting better and better at playing the game, so I'm lasting longer and longer. Just having a good time with it. So it was also fun, playing with somebody as a spectator.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool. I also showed you a classic RPG from the very early days of the internet. So I'm not sure if OldManStompy knows about this one.
I'd never heard of it.
It's definitely pre-Flash kind of stuff. So it's that old. But have you ever heard of Kingdom of Loathing, OldManStompy?
Yeah, I know my wife played it a lot. When she was younger, I played it a little bit, but it never quite grabbed me like enough to like really get into it. I was playing a lot of Magic at the time online, so I didn't want to dedicate time, browser time, to like an RPG like this. But it's still active, like.
Yeah. Well, I found out about this game in college, and even by that point, like that game is old.
Yeah.
Like that was 10 years ago. So, or over 10 years ago at this point. 13 years ago, right? So
it was one of the games involved in the ARG for Frog Fractions 2. That game where like that thing where like a sigil was hidden randomly in like a whole bunch of indie games.
Oh, okay, cool. But this game was like updated like constantly throughout time here, and it's also one of the funniest games that it was like one of the first games where I was like, oh man, the internet is really funny. I love the internet.
Yeah, like the actual game is pretty basic, but where it shines is the descriptive text for everything you do. Like you need to talk to a bird on top of a mountain called the Toot Oriole, to learn how to play the game, and it's like, let me show you the ropes, and then it points to a pile of ropes. And then it's like, and I'll also tell you how to play the game. And it's like, oh god.
But it's very much like a text art, very much like Zork's sense of humor.
Yeah,
like,
I think my favorite line is that like when you attack an enemy, it says different things each time, so you don't get bored. But my favorite one of those was so freaking dumb, where it's like, attack the basic enemy, and it's like, just as a baker needs the dough, you need the enemy in the face, and it's just like, it's like, it was the best.
Yeah, it still holds up. The humor is still funny.
It's like basically like if I made a game, like it's more clever
it's
than
all
I would come up with, but it's my kind of humor.
Yeah, and it's really funny because like it has a description of something, and it uses like the pronoun his. And it's just like, oh, and if you're one of those kinds of people that gets offended by this sort of thing, you can replace that with his or her.
Yeah, if you care about that kind of thing. Also, even early in the first, quote, dungeon, there's like a crate. But, like, to open it, you still go to a battle screen, and it describes it with like, oh, you're a little nervous about seeing a crate so early in the game. It's like, what? It's great.
Yeah, I was really enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. But the reason why I brought it up is on Steam, they actually came out with the Kingdom of Loathing guys came out with a real video game called The West of Loathing. So I guess it's a sequel. I guess.
And it looks like it takes place in the Wild West. Like, we didn't actually take a look at it, but yeah.
It takes place west of the Kingdom of Loathing.
Yeah, sure enough. It would. And
I was just so I didn't even know they had plans on making like a full-fledged RPG game. That's a standalone program. But I was all about it, because even though I hadn't like gone in depth in playing Kingdom of Loathing for a long period of time and trying to beat it and do everything you could do in it, I really enjoyed the little bits I had played of it back in the day, and so I just decided to buy the game, and apparently people are loving it. Like it still has the old magic, as it were. So I'm really looking forward to playing that. That's gonna be cool.
After that, it was getting to. Yeah, like those were like, despite how long we took to describe the games because they're freaking awesome, we didn't actually look at them for that long. But after that, I showed Vyse Inside. Like, I watched him play it, and he actually beat the whole game in one go. It took a few hours, but yeah, it was just really cool. See, like, kind of like with OldManStompy with you, Minty Mints, and me with Undertale. It was cool seeing Vyse play Inside and see his reactions to certain interesting things when they happened, when I already knew it was coming.
Like
Especially
the end
that
of the game.
climax. Yeah, I said, when the climax happens, you know what it is. You know that's the climax of the game for sure. And after that, we went out to dinner. Well, we'll go into that shortly. But coming back from dinner, we just knocked out the last couple secrets in the game he'd missed, so you could look at the extra ending, which was also cool to see his reaction to that as well. I mean, no spoilers, but it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, this type of game is one of my favorite type of games. I love the cinematic platformer.
Yeah.
The cinematic platformer can be a very clunky affair. It can be really bad, but it can also be fantastic. So I love like the original Prince of Persia games. I love Flashback. I love Out of This World or Another World, depending on what part of the world you're from. But my favorite one is Heart of Darkness, which you watched me play back in college.
That is a tough game.
And I love that game. It's one of my favorite video gaming experiences. And because it's a short game, because all cinematic platformers can really be, most of them can be beaten in under 4 hours.
Yeah.
Limbo is another one of them, by the same company. So Heart of Darkness, like the real challenge is figuring out the puzzles, right? And once you figure out the puzzles, you can beat the games very, very quickly.
Except for that fucking final boss.
Well, yeah. But Heart of Darkness is a fantastic game. It's also very well known for having particularly gruesome death animations. Inflicted on a child.
But gruesome in a cartoony, bloodless way, where you see it and you're like, oh, that would be gruesome.
Like, a lot of it is imagination. Like, one of the things that happens is, like, there are these, like, caterpillars that, like, or worms that pop out of the wall, and they'll grab the child and bring him into their little hole, and then that basically, like, snap his neck, but you only see his lower half of his body hanging out of the hole.
Yeah, the legs twitch and get stiff for a second, and you're like, oh, that was the moment.
Yeah. Jeez. So that's, like, one of the most gruesome deaths in the game, but you technically don't see anything.
Yeah, and with Limbo, everything's black and white, so even if there is a little blood, but like it looks worse than it really is. With Inside, they allow it to get not too gory, but with Inside they allow.
How about when
violence.
My character got smeared on the wall by the cylinders?
That took me by surprise. I was
like, oh.
And there's a death you didn't even see, where those fan blades, you can get cut in half, and you're just like intestines are just hanging out. Like, you just see, like, entrails hanging out. It's just like, oh, like, that's the most violent death in the game. And it's not, like, gross compared to other game standards, but for a game like that, that's shocking. It's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, I love that type of trial and error gameplay. You know, you have to get the timing right through making mistakes and things like that. I love that kind of thing. I'm really glad that you. Like, I was going to play it anyway, but I'm glad that you got me to play it.
Like, just sit down and play
also,
it. Yeah.
Also have somebody to play it with.
Yeah, because some of the puzzles, most of the puzzles, you can really figure out reasonably, but some of them are a little out there.
Most of them, I think I was pretty good at figuring out.
Yeah.
But it was still a really great experience. Definitely another game that is going to add to my list of, I'm going to play this every couple years because I liked it that much. And it's short enough where, like, playing it again is not really taking away from, playing something else.
Yeah, no.
Really.
No.
Yeah.
It's like Streets of Rage. It's like, you know what? I'll give myself like an hour and beat it.
Yeah, it's not like replaying like something that's like a
Skies of Arcadia
game. Yeah, replaying Skies
Enjoy
of
the next,
Arcadia
like, 2
every
months.
2 years. Like I should be playing some other RPG that I missed along
you
the
imagine
way.
you finish Skies of Arcadia and it's like, well, it's been a year. Time to
Yeah,
start over
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So like, no way am I
Time
am
to
I going
flatten
to
up Binding of
replay
Isaac
many.
again.
There aren't many RPGs I'm ever going to replay. Chrono Trigger's probably going to be the only one because it's probably one of the best ever made. And Skies of Arcadia maybe, but I'm never going to play it every 2 years.
That's too much.
Like I played those games 10 years ago. I beat those games 10 years ago. At this point, like I'll probably replay those. Sometime soon. But there's so many other games that I missed. I've never beaten any Final Fantasy game other than 7. So I'm clearly missing out on, especially on the 16-bit ones. I really need to play 4, 5, and 6.
I missed a quest.
So 1, 2, and 3, screw that. But I do want to play 4, 5, and 6. Mm-hmm. So
oddly, one of those games that's like been remade a whole bunch of times, where your best bet is probably just to play the original Super Nintendo version.
Well, what is it? 4 has a ton of remakes. 6, not so much.
6 has like the GBA remake, I think.
6 has the GBA remake. It has the port for
iOS,
for PlayStation,
iPhones.
and then it has a whole. Well, no, it has the port for PlayStation, which was available in the US, and then it has the iOS, the mobile versions, and the one on Steam, which is supposedly like the game is fine, but the art is supposedly like atrocious. Like,
it's like flash art. Yeah.
I hear the best way to play 6 now is with the GBA version, but like hacked to have the higher quality music.
Oh.
If there are ROM hacks to improve it to SNES almost level.
Okay.
So
Nice.
so you can play that version, and supposedly that's the best.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Same thing with all 3 GBA games got that treatment, I think, from fans. So they're pretty much all the best in their category, except for maybe 4, which has a really great PSP version. You could play it on the Vita or the PS TV. That version is everybody's favorite of that one, it seems.
The one that has the after years on it and the intermission.
Yeah, exactly. But nobody plays those. Apparently,
I wouldn't recommend the after years. Yeah, I have played it. It's not that great.
It's fanfic the game, apparently. And like the world isn't contiguous enough. Apparently, it's just very, very linear and not very fun. So,
well, it's a cell phone game. It's like a 13-episode cell phone game, and it just happens to be like concatenated into one big game that isn't very rewarding.
I'll read the Wikipedia article on that one if I'm very curious about what happened after the moon. But that's like the spoiler that I know is the moon.
So the oddest thing I learned from that game is that like a really long time ago, back when the SNES was still like the system of choice, I read on like the early days of the internet that Cecil, the protagonist of Final Fantasy IV, his last name was Harvey. I was like,
really?
Harvey? Cecil Harvey? Like, is this some fanfiction bullshit? Like, you're telling me his last name is Harvey?
And back then, you would never know whether it was
and it
real
turns
or
out,
not.
yes. It turns out, yes, his last name is Harvey.
Okay.
Well, like, I think, like, they had a string of really weird naming, like, of their main characters.
Like all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, but particularly during the 16-bit era.
And like Randy from Secret of Mana.
Terra and Squall and Cloud You know,
Cloud and
these
Squall
are not like
seem. Yeah.
Well, those are better than Butts. I mean, come on.
No, they're not.
And Cecil Harvey and
Butts is the best.
I think there is what in Final Fantasy Mystic Quest the main character's name is Ben, just like Ben, like
Benjamin.
Yeah, it's just what like you have all these goofy names in the series, and then you Bob, like
it's like all right.
In Mystic Quest, the playable characters are Ruben, Phoebe, Kaylee,
Tristan,
and Ben.
Yeah.
Ben, yeah, like you have all these Shakespearean and biblical names, and then you have fucking Ben.
There's also like Aerith from Final Fantasy VII that they localized as Aerith with an S, and then Square was literally like, no, it's Aerith with a TH. Get it right, and they changed it in Kingdom Hearts. They changed it in Kingdom Hearts to with a TH, and I think in the remake it will probably be Aerith with a TH. I think in Record Keeper it's Aerith with a TH.
It's pretty great.
Well, like every weeaboo in the world like changes her name back to Aerith, but like it really should be Aerith. That's the funny thing.
Yeah,
it's like no localization was right, and your naming convention.
The original was wrong.
yeah, because like it's supposed to be related to Aerie, like I guess like.
I thought it was supposed to be Earth, like.
Oh, okay.
Oh, like Earth, like I can kind of see that Cloud and
It
Earth.
happens like in Kingdom Hearts, Kairi, Riku, and Sora contain the words for Earth, Sea, and Sky. So that's a very common naming thing.
Oh.
And that's I assume also where like Cloud, Squall, Terra, Tia, they all came from.
Yeah, I was thinking Cloud and Squall are very kind of related.
And then you have Lightning. That's another celestial thing.
Snow.
Yeah, Lightning, Snow.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone else with like a weather
Titus?
name and. Yeah, Titus.
I don't know about that one, but
I love the names in Final Fantasy XII, though. I really do, like Balthier and
those are cool.
Bagamnon. I love that guy. Like Bosch. Fran is like the most normal name.
Yeah, no, those are cool.
Sidolphus.
They make it seem like very classical. Like it's almost like from like a Greek play.
I've said this 100 times, but FF12 Sid is freaking great.
Yeah,
Sidolphus. Yes, I think the first game where he was Sidolphus, like explicitly.
Yeah,
and in 15, where Sid is a girl now, and it's Sydney in the Japanese version, but Cindy in the American version.
Oh, gotcha. Boo, American version! You get it wrong. I love FF8, where it's just like the principal of the school. It's like, all right, the flying school. Okay.
So anyway, getting back to what we did, we went to the Poorhouse, which is one of my favorite restaurants. Like
Pour. It's like part bar.
Yeah, and this place has an excellent rotating stock of microbrews, and
I'm sure Lotus took a.
Yeah, I was gonna say I ordered the same burger I had the previous time I've been there, and. Drank water.
I'd like to have this burger, but with all of the stuff
without the cool
off.
stuff. Yeah.
You mean just a burger and a patty and a roll and
barbecue
sauce? Yes.
You know your menu. I'll take that on the side with a plain burger.
Yep.
It's
but wouldn't you rather? No.
But this place has probably my favorite burger that I've ever had. Is a place that like lives within walking. It's within walking distance of where I live, and it still is my favorite burger. I don't have to travel very far for the best burger that I've ever had. So it's really awesome. They must have like some they have like a very unique mix of meat. Whatever they do, the way they season it or combine it with other types of meat, probably they probably put some veal in it or something. I don't know, but it's really fantastic, and they have all different kinds of burgers as well. So they're always changing it up, so I get to try all of them, and it's just so good. And we had a really good experience there. We were just chilling out and had a really good server, and we also got a gigantic Bavarian pretzel, which was really awesome.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Yeah. So we walked back after that, and we were like, okay, well, our initial impetus for hanging out was that we wanted to watch this movie called Stalker. which is a Russian movie from 1979. It came out the same year as Mad Max and is a post-apocalyptic movie that's informed a lot of other post-apocalyptic culture. The Stalker video games are named after this movie in particular. So I really wanted to watch it to see where this post-apocalyptic culture came from, especially on the Russian end, because we're very familiar with the Western stuff, and the Australian and we even know about Japanese post-apocalyptic stuff. But I've never really seen Russia's perspective on it, considering they are, a post-nuclear country as well. So it's very interesting to me to I've experienced, some of the periphery of the Stalker video game series, and also the Metro video game
Metro
series.
2033.
Yeah, which is by the same team.
Also based on a book.
Yeah. So I've really wanted to watch the movie that inspired that offshoot of that post-apocalyptic culture. So, and you were really interested in it too, Lotus. But
I want to see it. Yeah.
We
turned it on at like 10 o'clock, and we realized it's like a 2 hour and 40-minute movie.
I didn't know it was a 3 hour movie. I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, we'll come back.
It was just released on Criterion. One of the very first times that it's been really easy to get, because the movie's been kind of obscure, and I'm sure back down then in 1979, getting anything from Russia was probably pretty difficult. In the height of the Cold War there. I
think they had mentioned, like we'd seen in a YouTube video, even stuff like like American movies, like Schwarzenegger movies, like there was some anecdote about how for some reason, I don't remember what, but Arnold Schwarzenegger like had gone to Russia, and a lot of people
they knew who he was.
Yeah, but that was the thing. He was surprised that they knew who he was, because like American movies, or at least a lot of American movies, were outright banned in Russia, and they had watched his movies like from like the movie black market with all sorts of illegal copies and everything like that. So it probably would have been similar for us getting Russian stuff. Like you can't just buy it from the store. No way.
Well, I think you can count on Russia being the way that it is, having a pretty healthy contraband market. Just because a lot of Russia's inner workings are run by overt like gangsters.
Yeah, I mean, even I read like a recent on Facebook, like a Humans of New York post. Although this time the guy who does the page was in Russia, so it was Humans of Russia this time. But there was someone who had said like, "Oh, my daughter was in the hospital because she had some problem, and like our medicine wasn't doing it. So like I got American medicine from the black market." And it's like, wow, like that's just a thing that happens.
Well, that was actually what Dallas Buyers Club is all about. It was a guy who used to go down to Mexico to get AIDS medication for people.
Oh, wow.
Before the AIDS medication was approved by the FDA. So it was like you could get it in Mexico, and it was like life-saving drugs that people needed really badly back in the 80s, because people were suffering from AIDS. And this medication, was great help to people, and that's what that movie's about.
Yeah, and even now, people way up north in America, not even because we can't get the medicine, but because we can't freaking afford it because of our insane insurance policies. Some people will just cross the border and pick up cheap medication in Canada.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And that's actually a big thing. Actually, India makes a vast majority of the generics now, and I think a lot of people even go to India just for cheap medications.
Yeah.
Certain medications that cost like $200 a pill are like $3 a pill in India, and it's the same chemical compound.
Yeah, I mean, like, the catch is that you're not paying for the medicine here, you're paying for the research, but, like, that payment just never freaking stops.
Yeah, well...
There's got to be a point where you reach equilibrium. Yeah.
You could debate this for a long time.
Yeah, that's
but,
a whole
I don't
other...
even want to get into it. But
the point is, we couldn't watch Stalker.
Yeah,
I didn't want to leave your place at 1 a.m.
Yeah. So I do want to watch that. Just kind of like we watched A Boy and His Dog, which is
oh my god, that was so good.
Another formative post-apocalyptic movie that nobody talks about.
We should watch this with our other friends, because that movie's great.
Yeah, it's very surprising, like, just how much other post-apocalyptic movies have taken specifically from that movie alone.
Yeah.
And nobody ever talks about it. Everybody talks about Mad Max being the formative movie, which, it is, but...
Well, A Boy and His Dog kind of looks like Mad Max. It's just without the emphasis on cars.
Yeah. I kind of got an El Topo vibe from it as well.
I can see that.
Yeah. So, like, it has kind of like a psychedelic kind of aspect to it, almost. Like,
toward the end,
very 60s.
where the movie obviously shifts into its second half, they had a bunch of, like, whoa, like, quick camera cuts showing you, like, the shock of the new sights that kind of came off as rather psychedelic.
Yeah. And it's a Warren Ellison story, which is great. So,
Harlan, but yeah.
Harlan Ellison, that's what I meant. But yeah, when we came back, instead of doing that, because we went over something that was much more bite-sized, we watched all the whole series of Southpaw Regional Wrestling episodes.
Yeah, OldManStompy's brought this up on the podcast before, but it was freaking great. Like, I've seen it already, so I wanted to see, like, again with Inside, like, I wanted to see Vyse see it.
I only saw the first episode, so, like, I didn't realize that there were 4 episodes, and it just, like, continues on.
It keeps getting stupider. Sometimes I like to take my checks from my perforated checkbook and staple them to my face. So, on with the news. It's like, what?
Actually, I will note that the guys who play Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad, they're an active tag team on WWF, and the guys Gallows and Anderson, like, so those characters in Southpaw, they're offshoots of characters they play, like, on a podcast they have.
Yeah.
So one of them, I can't remember which is which, but one of them is actually doing the Chad Too Bad laugh, like, now in his actual in his promos. This is like it's like a breathy laugh. There's no like vocalization to it at all. It's just like
that's pretty irritating.
It's like so obnoxious to listen to. It just does it into the microphone. It's so aggravating.
That's great. Also, one other, this is backtracking a little bit, but that staple the checks to my face comment, I remember that one because it's so outrageous, but the one other one I had completely forgotten about because he, like, sneaks it in. He's like, oh yeah, I used to be a news anchor elsewhere. So anyway, yeah, that wrestling looks really exciting. I miss my father. What? Jesus.
He's such a sad man, and he's.
But the funny
by,
thing is, like, Chet's way sadder.
Wrestler.
Well, yeah. What's my favorite part about it was John Cena's delivery is like his acting in this is phenomenal. Like, I did not expect that from him because you expect him to kind of be too above, like, being that fun. I guess, right. but like I didn't realize he had that kind of comedic timing. Like he purposefully had a like a stilted speech pattern, like a purposeful one that he came up with himself.
Right. And what was also impressive is with that speech pattern, he still acted like he's trying to figure out how to react to some stupid new situation that's come up. Like, so I am, like when Chet started, like, crying because his, like, girlfriend's not getting back to him or whatever, it's like, well, some of us get choked up.
Some of us can hear crying inside.
I know you hear crying all the time in your head, but you hear this?
But does anybody else also hear that crying?
No, but not even that. When it's that stupid, like, Pelvis Wesley, like the Elvis impersonator, it's just like, some of us see this Pelvis Wesley and get choked up, and it just cuts to, like, commercial. It's amazing. It's and like trying so hard to salvage the situation.
I also just love that Ric Flair is playing an impersonator of himself, which is hilarious.
Seriously, this is not Ric Flair.
So, like, if Southpaw Regional Professional Wrestling had me, which they couldn't because they couldn't inform me, then while I was there, I would have some Georgia Gold KFC.
Yeah, and I also love his really, like, phoning it in delivery too, like, and get there spicy, woo, tasty, woo, Georgia Gold Country Chicken. It's just like, he just sounds like he does not care, and it's amazing.
To be fair, like, Ric Flair plays himself as a character, and he has been for the last, like, 20 years.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, but he really clearly sounds like he does not give a damn, and it's amazing.
No, I mean, that's actual Ric Flair these days. Like,
oh, is it?
I don't know if you've seen him on television, but he's, like, 68, and, like...
Yeah.
He's just tired.
Yeah.
But I should tell the audience what this is, because we never really prefaced it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So Southpaw Regional Wrestling is WWE's sanctioned parody of 80s
itself.
Regional wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's filmed in the same style as like cheesy 80s wrestling.
Yeah, it's got
there's
it's got
no actual
grain.
wrestling going on. It's just promos.
Yeah, there's film grain. There's not great camera work with like awkward zooms and slight pans to the side. The promos are just bad. There's a couple parts of the green screen and it's really bad. It's like that Batman surfing episode green screen, and it's even a surfing thing. It's really freaking dumb. The cuts happen at awkward times. Like, it's fantastic.
And
so. It's also fairly accurate to what territorial wrestling was like in the 80s before it became like a national affair. Before
like
the
WCW kind of stuff, you know?
No,
like,
even lower than that. WCW was also like was you know a major national promotion at some point, but you know they swallowed up like dozens of other smaller territorial wrestling promotions, and those were the ones that would put on shows like what you saw in Southpaw Regional Wrestling. Like it's interesting because like the two like surf dudes with attitude,
yeah.
You know, like that's very accurate to what it was like to put a wrestling promotion on in the South, because like you know, in the South there was no such thing as homosexuality, right? People believed that it was something you didn't have, that it was something like fundamentally wrong with you, like a mental illness. So like a lot of these wrestling promotions, especially if they're villains, like the guys would just be like vaguely homoerotic and you never knew why. Like
and you would just hate them because like that's what you were taught that you should hate,
there's like
weirdos.
Yeah.
But it's not even a thing that went out of style. Like the New Day are like the biggest faces in wrestling right now, you know, and they used to be villains, and you know, I would tell my mom or my parents, like, and I would show them wrestling, and I'd be like, these guys, you know, they sit around and they run a YouTube channel and they play video games all the time and they just have all this fun, and it was like, and she was like, well, wait, how are they bad guys? And you look and they're in like fucking Birmingham, Alabama, and here's like 3 big black guys wearing rainbow colored suits with unicorns on their foreheads, gyrating in the middle of the ring with pelvic thrusts, and it's like,
yes,
yeah, that sounds amazing. Actually,
these are definitely bad guys right now, right in this point in time where they are in this country. They are bad guys. And once they, you know, once they become loved, then they'll be good guys. But right now, they're definitely bad guys.
Also, by the way, speaking of stuff like that, because I didn't even pick that up from the Surfer Dude promo, but one thing I definitely did was like that one Luchador promo where it was like obviously an American promo of Luchador, because it's just like, what Spanish words do you know? You know, so it just shows the guy running down a hallway, and it's like, Rapido, like, you know, La Barba Grande will be in wrestling, Misterioso. It's like, what is this? Just like saying words.
You know, he's like, that's like the one guy who I can't figure out who it's supposed to be. Like everybody else, you can tell which like roster wrestler it is pretty easily. But El Barba Grande, I have no fucking clue who that guy is.
I also like the sea creature, just him stumbling around because the guy's clearly not comfortable in the suit at all. That was my favorite.
I will say that the monster from the sea, I also don't know who that is.
Yeah, that, by the way, that was definitely my favorite opening to an episode. Like, because the bad guy is just wearing these chains around his fist. And
he's
like,
fake mustache on.
Yeah, and he's acting like he was just caught on camera. Like, what? Oh, you thought these chains were for you? Oh no, you need to read the fine print in your contract more carefully, because, and he's like unfurling the chain, and you see it's attached to something. Like, you must fight my creature from the sea.
It looks like a piece.
Like, what?
It looks like a piece of shit.
It's like the worst costume ever.
It looks worse than a Kamen Rider villain.
It was bad. Because I had mentioned it to Vyse before, because I didn't realize we'd be actually watching the episodes that day. So when we finally got around to watching it, he was like, "This is worse than I thought it would be." It was fantastic.
Yeah, because Lotus explained like what this guy looked like to me, and I'm like, okay, I know what a bad costume looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Like so I'm thinking Power Rangers, you know, Kamen Rider level, but maybe a little less. But no, I wasn't prepared for how bad it was.
And again, he's like stumbling around because he's clearly not comfortable wearing the costume. And like, also, I love just the bad writing. like my creature from the sea. Like I call him the sea creature. Like, all right.
So someone on the wrestling subreddit actually wrote an entire fake series of Wrestling Observer newsletters by Dave Meltzer, as though he was commenting on Southpaw Regional Wrestling live as it was happening, or like a recap of it. It was like. So there's a guy who posts like old recaps of old episodes of the newsletter to like encourage people to subscribe, and he did this whole thing for the 4 weeks that in 1983 that Southpaw was supposed to be active, and it includes gems like it's obvious from the timing of the show that nobody at Southpaw has any idea there's no leap year in 1983.
Yeah, 87.
So, 87, yeah.
That was the punchdown at the end. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I noticed that in the first one. I was like, there was no leap year then. Leap years only happen on even years.
Yeah.
So, like I knew that from the beginning, but I didn't know they were going to acknowledge it. And they
like,
acknowledged it at the
up
very
to that.
end.
John Cena finally just, like, snaps.
So
there is no leap year! We're ruined!
The ultimate absurdity to me at the end was when they had, Big Bartholomew, who's played by Rusev, a Bulgarian wrestler, playing an all-American farmer, complaining about how he's gonna, win against the sea monster for all the American people, and the announcer, Jericho, who's Canadian, is like, oh, the banker is also from America, but the banker is also played by a Canadian wrestler, so he's not actually from America.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. But I also like how the announcer was trying to, like John Cena, also try to salvage the stupid situation he's in, where it's like, will you sign the contract for the American people? Yes, and then it just like camera cuts, then it's like a second take, and then he signs it somewhere. Well, you're supposed to sign it on the you're supposed to sign it over here, and they just kind of walk away like cheering, like we're gonna do it. It's like, oh well, yeah, the contract is signed, like, oh, it's on now. This is what is going on. It's
what
amazing.
I think the creature from the sea is supposed to be is a parody of so there was a time period where like I don't know whether it was WWF or maybe another regional one that like way back earlier in the early 80s or late 70s, there was a character that lasted like one fight that was delved into the supernatural. Like it was like a bird themed wrestler. I read about it in like a wrestling failure book, like the worst wrestling stuff of all time. And there's apparently like this bird human that came out like in a giant bird nest.
I'm okay with this.
And it like oh no, it's the Birdman, that kind of thing. And like of course people were like, okay, like we know this isn't supposed to be.
I know what you're talking about. That's not what it's referring. So what you're referring to is the gobbledygooker.
Okay, yes. This is. I forgot. It had a really dumb name,
which is it was like this egg they showed on WWF, and it was like, what's in the egg? And it was a fucking turkey named the gobbledygooker. It was such a disaster.
like guys, like. People are supposed to have at least some suspension of disbelief that what is happening is supposed to be real. Like
no, that's the thing. What
this
happened?
Is the crap you do. Like you put Hulk Hogan in a Mayan temple.
Well,
like,
the Dungeon of Doom.
Well, the part where I lost, like I haven't watched much wrestling, but the part where like I could not suspend my disbelief was when the Undertaker was fighting somebody, but like the guy took the Undertaker's urn, which was the source of his power, and the Undertaker's like, oh no, and he's like going to the ground. I'm like, no, this isn't wrestling anymore at this point. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
so let me tell you a story, because like the gimmick that a guy has makes a huge difference in terms of how he's received, and some guys, they wait forever for that one like gimmick that will actually get them over. So like, as an example, there was a wrestler back in WCW in like the 80s, and he used to wrestle for a team called the Hollywood Blondes, because he just had this long blonde hair. Like, but his hairline started to recede, so he couldn't play that character anymore.
Oh, no.
So he goes to WWF, and all they give him is the Ringmaster. It sounds kind of funny, but like he's like working for the $1 Million Man, and like, but like he's a buffoon. He's like a circus themed wrestler called the Ringmaster. Like, like, that's the second time in a row. Like, he had to give up one gimmick because his hair fell out. Now he's got the other shitty gimmick, and so he goes to he goes to creative, and like they're finally thinking about giving him a real push, and he's like, oh yeah, I want to have this like Iceman style character, like a killer, like an assassin. Sure. So he has this list of names they give him, and they include such gems as Otto von Ruthless.
Oh, dude.
And Fang McFrost.
Like, no, Otto von Ruthless, man. Otto von Ruthless.
So thankfully he went home, and it was actually his wife who came up with the idea to call him Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, wow.
So, like, it just goes to show that, like, even if you're a fantastically talented wrestler, like an all-time great, sometimes you just bounce from, like, the shittiest gimmicks. You put your time in, and eventually you become really famous.
But by the way, regarding team-ups, you mentioned with the $1 Million Man, the best team-up $1 Million Man, like, ever was with, like, the guy whose name was like Erwin something Shyster. It was like IRS.
Yeah, Erwin R. Shyster.
Yeah, like the $1 Million Man is the guy who has all the money in the world, and IRS is the guy who like is taking all of your money. Like, because he always wore like, like a white collar short sleeve shirt with a tie and like these like accountant looking glasses, but like it was a very short sleeve shirt because the guy's fucking ripped. So it's like this nerdy accountant guy who's just suplexing you to death, and it's like, oh god, like it's fantastic. Like, I remember seeing one thing, it wasn't a promo because like the wrestling match was about to start, but he was the guy with the mic in the center of the ring in Vegas, and he was saying something like, oh yeah, like you're all here on Vegas, so you're all it was like, no, you're like he was talking about the odds of winning or whatever, like the odds of the opponents beating us, but he's like, and as you know though, you're in Vegas and the odds are not so good, and he's like intentionally like, getting the audience to boo him. It was amazing. But I think I mentioned this before, but you have got to look up on YouTube the $1 Million Man like saga. It's like 2 or 3 videos where he like goes into this actual really high-end jewelry store to try to get this super championship like made, like inlaid with like 1 million diamonds and everything. Like, it's just so funny because he walks in with like a cape. And he just walks into the store going like,
who wears a cape?
Yeah, he walks in with a cape going, ha ha ha, doing his laugh unprovoked. And like someone in the store is just like, it's the $1 Million Man. Like, you would have any goddamn idea who that guy is. It's so fantastic.
Remember, like, he was also the one who hired, quote unquote, The Undertaker for his first match in WWF, right? So like they debuted at Survivor Series as part of his entourage. Like that just seems like something he would want to do. Just like find a guy who's good at his job and is also like 6'10".
Yeah,
that was.
Oh, and one other thing, by the way, this is going way back to Southpaw itself. But you had mentioned Rusev was like this Bulgarian guy. There was one thing. Who is the like Lana? Like, who does she? What kind of nationality does she play? Like Russian or something?
Oh, so she's actually American.
Yeah, she is American. But
she's American. She went to Florida State, and she became famous because she got shown during a Final Four game or a major bowl game, as part of an attractive group of girls on the side, and they all got like modeling careers after that. She wound up eventually in WWF. She did, however, spend a few years living in Latvia.
That's what it was.
So she does a pretty convincing Russian accent.
Because that's one thing that was really funny on one of the Southpaw episodes. Like, somebody had posted like as a joke, and it got like a tons of likes. Like, wow, Lana's American accent's pretty good. It was fantastic.
That's funny. But one more thing about like bad gimmicks. There was one in WCW apparently that was based off of like a video game. Like he was supposed to be like Sub-Zero almost.
Yeah, Glacier.
All right.
Like they based a wrestler off of a video game fighting character. Like that's what he was supposed to be.
So what was he supposed to do? Like shoot ice like in the games? Like how's that gonna work? Does he touch you when you freeze?
I mean, let's keep in mind. So, I mean, let's keep in mind some other things that they've had. There was a guy called Phantasmo who was just a stage magician, and he would
nice.
He would do illusions.
There was like there was an 8-year-old girl who was like from the Exorcist.
Oh, you
had like demon strength.
They had didn't RoboCop show up once?
Yes, RoboCop showed up in WCW with Sting at least once.
Yes.
For some reason.
By the way, speaking of Sting, I love that GIF you showed me where like a guy in the audience with a Sting mask takes off his mask and it is Sting and he just like attacks the guy. It was amazing.
In the same makeyp as the mask.
Yeah, he takes off the mask and it's just the same face underneath.
They zoom in on him as though it's like a big reveal, but it's just also...
that reminds me of like the real life, for real, like that one Comic-Con where Bryan Cranston walked around the con wearing a Walter White mask, so it's just his own face.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. I love stuff like that.
That's really
so that's actually kind of how the Broken Hardys thing started, in that like Jeff Hardy had a character called Willow the Wisp.
Oh.
Really?
And it was like this big guy in a wizard getup. And it was like based on like he wrote songs, you know, and he was an artist. Like Jeff Hardy in real life, and he was also like stoned out of his mind most of the time. So came up with this character, Willow the Wisp. Is this guy in a big wizard costume with a big umbrella, like a mix between the Joker and fucking Mary Poppins, you know? And like he represented like Jeff Hardy's really insane side, as though regular Jeff Hardy wasn't already crazy. So like after
Brother
a while,
Nero,
your brother Nero.
So Matt Hardy like. He started dressing up as Willow and attacking Jeff Hardy, you know?
All right.
And so now there were like 3 or 4 of them, and sometimes like an entire like ring full of Willows, like attacking Jeff Hardy. It was so weird.
I still think in that old broken, like that first broken Matt Hardy sketch where he's like, you know, we need to go back to where
final deletion.
Like I still love that one clip where he just like breaks character, where it's like we need to like go back to that barn where we first fought, and like as he approaches the barn, like he's doing that voice like, you know, where it all began, and like as he approaches the barn, like his gardener's just outside, he's like, everything all right, Mr. Hardy? And it's just like, yeah, and he just keeps walking. Like it's so good.
So in the actual match that led up to, there's a scene where he's like walking around his backyard, he's trying to find Jeff because they're having like this big no holds barred match in their actual backyard of that house. And he sees like a boat, you know, overturned.
Yes.
And in his British accent, he's like, "Behold, a dilapidated boat." And then like Jeff pops up behind it, and he's got like a firecracker launcher, and Matt's like, "Oh shit!" Like breaks character in his North Carolina accents.
By the way, like, was he with anybody before Jeff popped out?
No, it was a wrestling match. Who else would he? He's narrating to the camera, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, behold. Like, who is he telling to behold?
So the drone that they used to film a lot of those tracking shots became a character in the saga later.
What was it called? It was probably V something?
Vanguard 1.
Vanguard, yeah. That's great.
So I think this should be a topic for a viewing party at some point. We should actually just watch the entire Broken Hardy saga from beginning to end.
I'm okay with this. Yes.
Like, yeah, I haven't actually seen much of it except for that one video, which I mentioned earlier.
I wish all wrestling was like this.
Like, I mentioned like a great reaction video, which is just him going like, delete, 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 and like each time he says delete, his assistant is holding this book with delete written in huge letters, and every time he says delete, he underlines the word delete one more time. It's like, what is this? It's so good. But it's a great reaction to, like, you know, a stupid post or something online where it's like, delete, delete, delete. Like, it's fantastic.
Well, speaking of reactions...
Yeah. We've had a lot of them today.
Yeah.
But you can finish your musing here.
Yeah.
No, so I would just say that, like, they're in WWF now, and WWF doesn't own the rights to the broken characters, and there's, like, a large lawsuit over the ability to use that intellectual property. So, like, they know the fans really want to see that, so they make references to it constantly.
Yeah.
But they tiptoe around it, right?
Yeah, but not even really that. Like, he'll use all his catchphrases, like, he'll say, wonderful, and he'll make the motion to people, he'll make the delete motion, and the fans will chant along. They just can't actually be the characters.
Oh, that's pretty good, though. That's good enough.
So, like, you know, their opponents will always go, like, oh, we're here to break the Hardys and render them obsolete. Which is, like, amazing. So overblown and means nothing other than, like, ha ha ha, maybe next week we'll have the broken Hardys. No, not actually.
Yeah, that's
JK, JK, LOL.
Okay, well, we went off the rails here, but that's pretty much all we did when Lotus came to hang out. But we had a blast with all this stuff. Yeah. So
I will say that I was invited. I wasn't available to go, but in case like there's
everybody's always invited.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I was like actively invited by Lotus Prince to come on Saturday, so it was my own fault.
I actually told him
Vyse told me to
ask everybody.
Yeah. So while it was the two of them hanging out, we were invited.
Yeah,
that's all.
But that is the show for this week. Remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesday on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold, VyseTheBold, on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can communicate with me on Twitter at Lotus Prince, all one word. And finally, if you are interested in seeing some of my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, and even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon at patreon.com/LotusPrince. Again, all one word.
And you can find me as OldManStompy on basically every major social network or gaming network. And you can also watch my news show on public access in Utica, New York.
Nice. 6 weeks, 36 days. And now I'm here with you amateurs. OldManStompy would like to sincerely apologize. There was an audio error earlier. It's hard to fix.
I don't apologize for anything.
Oh, sorry. But
I'm sorry.
All right, we'll catch everybody on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Have a good week.